Who doesn't like comfort and luxury at its best? Of course, it's Protea Hotel by Marriott. We are sponsored by them. They are located in Entebbe, along the Entebbe Highway, and they do have different services, including a health club, fully fledged gym, swimming pool, kitchen, as well as sleeping in case you would like to spend a night with your loved one. My name is Nowamani. You're welcome to Issues at Hand. Thank you so much for being a part of Family TV of Church of Uganda. Family TV, of course, during the week, the stories from the church have been trending. Top of our list, we have, of course, the Luweero Diocese that is yet to enact or to enthrone another bishop. We had the Bishop of Bukedi Diocese who presided over the launch of the Kampala Fellowship, Kampala chapter of Bukedi Diocese. It went very successfully, but top of all, we had our special projects from the Chinchizi Diocese as well as South Ankole Diocese. We were able to learn a lot. Personally, I am interested in farming now after the projects and reports that are from there. Coffee farming is quickly on the rise, and it's becoming one of the major factors that are seeing to the growth and development of the people of South Ankole Diocese. We thank God for that. We thank God for a new morning today, Monday, the 10th of July, 2023. You're welcome to Issues at Hand. Today, there is a very pressing issue around Uganda as a country, but Kampala Central in particular. And of course, this is the issue about DNA, understanding what DNA is, how it comes about. Is it 100% accurate? Who do we trust to do these DNA tests? How are they done anyway? Are the samples collected from just the gentleman who is responsible for the child, or are they collected from both the parents? And of course, do we have equipment, enough equipment as Uganda, as a country, as a government, as Uganda as an entity? Do we have enough equipment or the right equipment to make sure that the results are 100%? In studio with me is my guest for today, the right guest to be speaking about these issues. His name is Dr. Freddie Bwanga, Senior Lecturer, Makerere University, College of Health Science. He's also a Laboratory Director of Medical and Biomedical, MBN, Clinical Laboratories. You're very welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Maria.
Yes, my name is Carol, and
yes, Carol.
I'm glad to have you in studio today. First, I'd like to look at MBN, which is a complex of laboratories that serve as a referral facility. It was incorporated in Uganda in February 2010. Yes. Am I right? And of course, they do biomedical testing for individuals, for clinics, for other lab hospitals, the corporate entities, the government as well, universities, and we are going to be looking at that in particular. How are you related to MBN?
Thank you very much, Carol. My name is Dr. Freddie Bwanga. I work as a senior lecturer at Makerere University, College of Health Sciences, and I also work as the Laboratory Director for MBN Clinical Laboratories, located at Nakasero Road in Kampala. I'm happy to be here to clarify on the little I know about DNA, and I hope that by the end of this show, our viewers and listeners will have picked some message.
Very true.
Yes.
Okay, let's start. First of all, DNA is basically the molecule inside cells that contain the genetic information to be passed from one generation to another. It is made up of a double standard helix, if I'm getting my medical language right. Or do you want to help us and explain what DNA is? After I tell you what it is in full, it's the
deoxyribonucleic acid.
What?
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
So I'm asking myself, a person down in Kawempe, how will they pronounce this and how will they understand?
They just say DNA.
It's the easy way out.
Just and everyone will understand.
Well, I'm determined to learn its pronunciation today. So it's the deoxyribonucleic acid.
Correct.
100%.
You're a quick learner.
All right, let's understand what it is. What is DNA?
Okay, as you rightly said, DNA is a molecule or a tape, and it's actually the tape of life. So that tape of life contains information on an individual. It's not just for purpose of passing it over the next generation, but it contains the entire human being is coded on that tape of life. And needless to say, all living things contain some sort of DNA. Whether these are goats, cows, birds, they all contain what? Even plants, they all contain DNA. Without DNA, therefore, without life. Even viruses have, even like the recent coronavirus, the epidemic is still going on anyway. But that virus also has some sort of DNA, but the DNA in there is called RNA. So it's a small modification from the mainstream DNA. So how is this DNA? Let us focus now on the human being.
Okay. How
is this DNA acquired? Now, this DNA of a human being is acquired at the time of fertilization in our mother's womb. So that means during that time of fertilization, one tape of DNA is donated by the father, and the other tape is donated by the mother inside the female reproductive system. So when those two tapes come together, they form up the first cell. That first cell, one cell like this, will contain those two DNA tapes. Now, as that cell divides, it divides into the next cell. The next cell takes a copy of the DNA. Then the next one, then the next one. So then the cell was gone specializing into different parts of a human being growing in that womb, into the head, the eyes, the skin, the bones. So as the cell was gone specializing, they carry with them a DNA tape, the same DNA tapes acquired at the time of fertilization. That means by 9 months, when the baby is fully formed up, the entire body, the cells forming up the entire body of that baby has the same DNA tapes. Each cell has the same DNA tape. Now, when we do a DNA paternity test, what basically is done is to look into the child's DNA tapes, and we see if half of that those tapes, if half of that DNA is traceable in the man they are saying is the father.
Why?
Similarly, when we want to do a DNA maternity to determine whether the mother is the unalleged mother is the mother of that baby or that child, again we are looking into the DNA of the child and see whether there is half of DNA which resembles the mother.
Okay.
So that is how DNA is.
Let's maybe start from the issues that are affecting our community.
Yes.
If, for example, a person like Muhumuza gave birth to a baby boy.
Yes.
And Muhumuza's son has a head shape that looks exactly like Muhumuza's head shape. Does that count for DNA? Can we see that person and say there's no need for DNA since you resemble 100%?
No. Actually, the parts of the DNA we use in establishing relationships is in the genes we call the non-coding genes. They are silent genes. So they don't manifest on someone at all. So I think you've heard this saying that every person resembles someone on earth.
True.
Someone else on earth. So going by that rule, you can actually understand that if I look like Muhumuza, it's not necessarily that I'm his brother or is my biological son or is younger than me, so I should say. It's not always like that. However, well, some things can look alike, but that's not what we use in DNA testing.
So as MBN, are you the only people that carry out DNA tests?
Probably.
Or can any other hospital deal with it?
Probably before we delve into that, I would like to clarify for our viewers, why do people do DNA?
Okay, let's start with that. But I wanted us to sort the issue of hospitals first. Then we see, is it legal?
Well, that's a simple question to answer. At the moment, the actual testing in Uganda is done at two places, the Government Analytical Lab and at MBN Lab. So those are the two labs which have equipment for testing for DNA in Uganda.
Okay, thank you so much.
However, There are also those other places which can collect samples and refer to whatever testing lab they wish. So those maybe are more than the actual testing labs.
We're coming back to the issue of equipment, but
Yes.
let's first do, why do we do DNA
Yes.
testing? Maybe we
Okay.
shall get a starting point.
Thank you very much. Now, DNA testing is done for various reasons, but we can group them in about maybe 6 or 7, maybe 7. The first one is peace of mind DNA testing. This is one reason, one principal reason, and I think after explaining, I hope our people will understand why the word peace of mind probably fits it there, itself there. This is done when the father is doubting whether a certain child is his. Now, these kind of children involved in this particular bit are those children who are normally born and then their paternity is in balance. For example, a man might be there, and then a lady comes, maybe that this child is yours. And in that way, the man is not sure whether this is his child. And so he decides to do what? A DNA test. In a quiet, silent manner. Family issues, we're in family TV. Family issues are solved normally in the family way.
Privately.
Privately, yes. So if you find this is your child, then you take care. Surprisingly, we have had a lot of talk about families breaking because the fathers are testing for DNA, but surprisingly, there are very few families that come for DNA. Very few, actually very few. And those few, by the time they come, there is already a conflict at what? At home. So the people who come to do DNA are mainly where the child is in balance. And when you speak like with the Child and Family Protection Police, you understand this better, or with the Ministry of Labor and Gender. The people who go there to petition are those where maybe the man has refused what? To take care of the child. Maybe the woman has snatched my child and taken her away. Those kind of issues. So I think the people who are commenting on the issue of that they are alleging that the families are breaking because of DNA are not speaking the truth. They are speaking out of lack of knowledge. Because if you are a family and you have, say, 5 children and you, probably one, in a rare instance, one is not yours, I don't think a family can easily break when there are already other children in that family setup. So
can. You've seen some of them breaking.
So what I want people to understand is that the actual people coming from established families to test are a tiny fraction. The tests are normally requested for when the child is fatherhood is in balance. The child is there with the mom, with the grandmother, with the what, and the man who probably fathered the child is not forthcoming. Those are the scenarios under which commonly people do DNA testing. Still remaining under peace of mind, sometimes the mother is not sure of the child's father. Like at the time of conception, maybe she had more than one friend, and out of that she no longer knows who exactly is the father. And still remaining there, the relatives may not be sure, and imagine if you are a wife of a man in that family household where the relatives are saying that their son is not the father of that particular child. And if you are the one there, the mother of that child, you rather say, okay, me, I'm sure of my status, let us go for a DNA test and put this thing to what? To rest. And at one time there's a couple that came with a 16-year-old, and the mother said for those 16 years the man was on her case. She endured that psychological stress for 16 years. The man was saying, that is not my what? My child. That's not my child. Until when this test brought the answers, and the mother cried out of joy. Sometimes the mothers are doubting whether the child they got from the hospital is actually their child. This has been in the news many times.
No, but before we get there,
yes,
because that's a very training issue, but just before we get there,
yes,
can two men, two friends, as you call them, who maybe shared one partner,
Yes.
can it be possible that DNA is shared? That when they bring out the results, maybe they are 60% for one guy and 40% for another, or is it strictly the real father of the child?
When we speak to the public, we first of all bring out these very common scenarios. That what you are speaking about is possible, but it is maybe once in, I don't know in how many millions. It is a very, very minute, negligible.
But it's possible.
It is possible, but it's very, very minute. It's very, very, extremely rare. I don't even know the statistics, but it's extremely rare. So that one is not something even to think about for now.
Okay.
Yes.
That's very good. Okay,
Yes.
let's get to the issue of hospitals. There is a lady who claimed she got a wrong child from the hospital. Of course, when her man was pressing her on the wall, this is not my child, they did a DNA test. True to his suspicion, he was not the father of the child. So I want to understand, why isn't it that there's a law maybe that says you test both parents? In case of anything, you test both parents and not only the father, because some of our people are a little bit ignorant. So they will say, let's test, I'm not the father, forgetting to test the mother.
So testing the mother is a good thing as well during the paternity establishment. However, it's not always necessary to test the mother, because if the question we want to answer is paternity, in over 99 point something %, we are able to establish paternity without testing the mother. By testing the child and the father, we are able to do that. Now, in that rare event that the child is not for the mother, those are extremely rare also, because, for example, the allegations we have gone through for the last 10 years of DNA testing in Uganda, all the mothers who have petitioned and chose the hospital, the child actually has been for that mother.
For the mother. Because
in the hospital, in the labor suit, there is a system for identifying a child for Carol, for example. When I deliver you in that hospital at that time, there is a system which ensures that this child is tagged to your name. So that's why those are extremely rare also. It's possible, it has happened before, but it's extremely rare. So in case we find that the father is not the father and the mother is contesting, one of the protocols for quality assurance in the labs is that we invite the mother to be part of the test. So when the mother is tested, then we find if really the mother is the mother or not. In all cases where we have involved the mother, we have never got a scenario where the mother has not been the mother.
It is as rare as that.
As rare as that.
Interesting.
Yes.
What would the requirements be for one to carry out a DNA test?
The requirements are not normally so stringent. We just need to possibly identify the people we are testing. That means like the adults present an ID, a state-issued ID, and a photo. Then for those who don't have, just a photo, like the child is photographed and so on and so. So there is nothing much.
Is it age bound? Like, can anyone be tested, or by if a person is born, for example,
Yes.
a new baby is born,
Yes.
can they be tested and can their results be positive? If yes, why don't they make it? Or do you think they should make it, the authorities, mandatory for one to carry out a DNA test at birth so that we save ourselves the future problems?
Let me answer. There are two questions in there. Let me answer the first one.
Okay.
The DNA, as I mentioned, is formed up at the time of fertilization, conception. That moment, that's when the baby's DNA is formed up. That means from that moment, we can test any sample from that baby. It could be even when the baby is inside. There's a test we call prenatal DNA testing, which the baby can be tested before birth.
Okay.
So if that is possible, then after birth it's even more possible. But the issue of testing at birth everyone, I don't think there is need to do that.
Okay.
I think the family is zero. The family, I mean, children who are born in families, I think there is some level of trust still going on, and I don't think it is necessary. It's not of public health importance to do that, because there is no real public health problem we are preventing by testing every newborn. It's not there. Yes.
Okay, could you tell us of any experiences over the last years that you've handled DNA? Any unusual experiences or anything that we can learn from that?
Probably the only unusual experience I can remember well is that when these results are ready and they are ready to the people who have gotten involved, their reactions are never predictable. And that thing has challenged all of us. When a man is the biological father of that child, he may be happy, he may be unhappy.
Disappointed.
Similarly, the mother of the child might be happy or and it depends on the social scenario which drove them to do the test. For example, if you are you are a married woman in someone's home, and then a man passes there every evening and says, and your husband might, or you are praying that your husband doesn't hear this. Now, in that way, when you test with that man shouting at the gate, and you find that he's not the biological father of that child, what would be the response for you? It will be a pleasing response. So that thing has surprised all of us. People react differently to the results, depending on the social problem they are trying to address. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You talked about prenatal DNA testing.
Yes.
Is it done at MBN?
It is done. The technology is the same. It is just the samples that differ. If it is prenatal, we take samples from the unborn baby, from the mother and from the father, and that's all. The rest are the same. Okay. Yes.
Before we go for a short break, maybe we could look at legal DNA test.
Yes.
I'm seeing it as one of the DNA tests
Yes.
that are available.
Yes.
And you talked about the peace of mind. I'm seeing the immigration DNA tests as well as DNA profiling. But what is the legal DNA test? Maybe you can also tell us about legal DNA.
A legal DNA test is a DNA which has been requested for by the government law enforcement systems. This could be from the LOC system, from the district probation officer or office, from the leaders at all levels, including our church leaders like our Church of Uganda or Catholic or Muslim leaders, from the judges, from magistrates, from the Child and Family Protection Police. Probably that one actually does it most. From the Administrator General, when children of the deceased are fighting for property, and they are choosing and counter-choosing one another of not being for their family and so on, or for their father. So that's what we call a legal DNA test. It comes from the law enforcement systems of governance, and also from the leaders, I would say. Now, that DNA test normally arises when, like that one requested by the LOC system, the probation, the family help NGOs, and from the child and family and so on. It's normally requested for if the man decides not to take care of a child and the mother believes this is the biological father of her child. So, but when things fail, with these family things, normally they are handled in the family. Even the Bible prescribes this very well. Talk about it in the what? In the family. If it fails, talk to the elders. If that fails, talk to the church leaders. If that fails, go to the legal. I think this is how it should be, and that's how mostly it happens. But now, those people, we can call them the Hindu leaders, the men who refuse to solve the issues at all the earlier stages, are the ones who end up in the court or in the family and child and family police, and if things fail there, they end up in the courts. Otherwise, I know that the family now in the world is anchored in the culture, in the church, and in the legal systems. But now, these things are now all supported by DNA testing when the conflicts arise.
Okay. In there, you talked about technology, and
Yes.
I want to remember a social media clip that's trending of a lady who had issues with their partner, and this lady and the gentleman went for DNA testing, and they did about 3 of them in Uganda that were wrong, apparently. And when the DNA samples were sent to South Africa, they came back with different reports. Of course, we don't know what could have happened in the middle there, but as an expert in this field, could you help us enlighten on the equipment? Is it 100%? Can we trust it? The one we have in Uganda especially?
One thing that are you talking about the WhatsApp post from Muchala Mukasa? I remember I saw it on my phone. Now, that information in that message is what the lawyers might call hearsay. It doesn't reveal the lab. It doesn't tell anything beyond just an allegation you saw there on the post. So, we cannot make a judgment. What I would advise is that people who are reading social media, they should really interpret what they read with caution. Because many people are fabricating information, throw it on us in social media, and the ordinary people just follow. But the question is that a scientific fact? Is it a scientific fact? Has anyone really? That lady, why can't she mention the lab if what she's mentioning is correct?
Because you said there are only 2 places where...
Exactly.
Meaning if I wake up and
Yes.
go to any clinic,
Yes.
they cannot do a DNA test.
Maybe they can take off a sample from you and take to the testing laboratories.
Okay.
But that particular post, everyone listening should look at it with contempt, with all the contempt it deserves, because it looks like fabricated what? Information. Let her come out and say the lab, which tested and what went on. Then another one who posted that he tested 10 of his children and 8 were not his. Probably people have read that as well. Moreover, a person you would think is sensitive enough, but that's what he posted, and when people found out, he actually has never done any tests like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of fabrication on social media, and I want to appeal to the viewers to really interpret social media posts with caution. Back to the quality assurance. Now, laboratories which do DNA testing is, as of today, is highly complex technology. And that's why it's not readily available like for malaria, like HIV. It is very high-end technology. And the quality assurance systems in these labs are so stringent to the extent that every stage of the test is cross-checked for accuracy. Because errors are normal. You can make an error, everyone can make an error. But what distinguishes a DNA test with an international quality assurance system versus one without is that every stage of the process is cross-checked for accuracy. So that by the time the result comes out, it is the truth and the only truth. At MBN Lab, in order for, MBN Lab is internationally accredited by this organization called AABB. One of the requirements of this international accreditation is that in order to give an accredited report, if the alleged father turns out as not the father, the process is repeated with a parallel test. So if that new second test reveals the same thing, then now that we say now we are going to report this. If that is not done, then you never know. But this is one of the stringent measures we do to ensure that the quality of the result you get from the lab. We've been testing for 10 years. If there were issues, you would have heard them in the media.
Yes.
So, but that is it. Quality is a key thing, because the result has implications for the child, for the mother, for the father, and so on. That's why everything is done accurately. Yes.
Interesting. Okay,
Yes.
have people increased in number? You've done this for 10 years, but it's only trending in this country recently,
yes,
or recent.
yes.
So before it trended and now, what are the statistics? What is the difference in statistics of the numbers?
Actually, what has improved or what has increased is awareness. The awareness about the availability of DNA testing services, even within Uganda, and the cost has gone down a bit, and so on. Those are the things which have actually increased exponentially. Awareness and availability of services, and the lower going
Prices
down,
being cut.
prices being cut and going down. However, in terms of numbers, we have not seen a very marked rise the way it has been portrayed in the social media. It is not correct. It is just that people have just learnt about it, and people are fabricating things, so everyone thinks it is too much. It is a kind of an illusion. It's not correct that many people are testing.
So some people are lying, so they're getting wrong
I would
maybe
say,
results
I
from
would say
hospitals and
80%. I would say about 80% of what has been posted on social media
lying.
is
The
false
lie.
information.
Can you imagine that?
And people are just taking up that information. Even yesterday, I was watching TV and I saw the Archbishop of the SDA Church in Luwero. I think he visited, saying we should not we do DNA because it splits what? Families. So, but that's not a scientific fact. Because, as I told you in the beginning, the people who are in established families have not really done DNA. Even me, I have a family, but I have not done DNA on any of my children. So, I don't know which families they are waking up every morning, let's go for DNA, let's go. No, it's not correct. Actually, when the few families that have a child, they want to test when it arises, it is because there's some issue there, and there's an ongoing what? Conflict that requires a DNA test to what? To resolve. Even right now in Luwero, remaining in Luwero, we have that news circulating around of our bishop there where they say he's not going to be a bishop because of something related to that. I think it's in the news, everyone has heard it. But now, how does the bishop resolve that problem without a DNA test? So those are the scenarios under which people do DNA testing, those coming from families. But now, people are believing, including the bishop of the SDA Church who mentioned it yesterday, that every family is going for DNA and in effect splitting. That's not correct.
Interesting. Of course, there's a lot of speculations going around about this issue of the DNA, and it's causing some bit of tension, but as you're hearing it, some of these things are just false alarms. For example, there is no need to do DNA if a DNA test if you're sure, what I'm learning now, if you're sure about maybe the paternity or the maternity of the child, and there is no need to share these things with everyone because these things are between families.
Yes.
And they are supposed to be kept
They are
private.
within, not between, within.
Within.
Yes.
Not even between, but
Yes,
within. Very, very kept
Yes,
inside.
yes.
And of course, we must be secret keepers. There's no way you can start to out the things of your family outside in the public. But there's still a lot of things to look at. We have the prices, how the DNA samples are collected, and everything else. But I want to first take a short break. However, before I take a short break, just a quick one. We have a new Salongo in the building, and I'm just wondering, can twins have different DNAs in case their mother was involved with different friends?
There are two types of twins. One is identical twins. Identical twins have the same DNA profile, exactly the same. Non-identical twins have different DNAs or DNA profiles. Okay, with identical twins, the other cell we talked about before will form up and then it will divide, but then at that stage, the new cell goes and develops its own baby. And also, and the first one, which was there, also develops its own baby. So they have carried the same DNA, so they are called identical twins. Okay. The non-identical twins, two eggs of the mother are fertilized by two sperm cells, meaning each fertilized cell has its own DNA what? Profile. So one cell I mean, the fertilization occurs independent of the other. So those are non-identical or fraternal twins eventually.
Okay.
Now, there is again a very, very tiny probability that a mother can conceive today or in the morning or in the what with one man, and then in the afternoon conceives with another man. It's a tiny probability. So those tiny ones, as I said, in public health, we don't normally
capitalize on them.
You don't waste time on them because they are extremely rare. It's not something which is worth talking about.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go for a very short break. My greetings to Edwin Austin Kalazi, the producer of this show. We're powered by Protea Hotel by Marriott. We'll be back. Don't go away. You're welcome back to Issues at Hand. Thank you so much for keeping it Church of Uganda Family TV. I'd like to quote the words of Canon Captain Ongeng, who said that if you don't have the facts, just last week at the HCT gatherings, he said, if you don't have the facts to something, why are you even wasting time talking about it? Instead, just keep quiet. If you see, especially he used the phone as an example and said, if you see anything on social media, leave it to be on social media instead of spreading the wrong rumor and in the long run causing unnecessary issues and problems. Exactly there is where I want to go back to our topic and start on the DNA fees. How much can you pay to get tested? Where do you pay the money? Who picks it, and how long does it take? All these questions in our segment. But to start with, I'm sure there are statistics. I'm still with my guest, Dr. Freddie Bwanga, in studio, and we are discussing DNA, the deoxyribonucleic
acid.
Wow. Anyway, so let's start with the fact that there are some children out there who are taken for these paternity tests. Do they come out positive in many of them, or do they come out negative? Which one is higher than the other?
Thank you very much, Carol. The truth is, contrary to what's circulated again in the social media, the truth is that for all the paternity tests that are done, 60 to 70% of the men turn out as the biological fathers of those tested children. 60 to what? To 70%. Then the other remaining percentage, the alleged father is not the biological father.
The highest percentage
is on father is the
wow.
The man tested is the biological father of the child.
Okay.
But you remember again, social media came out and said 80%. Really? Which lab was doing it? So that's why I'm cautioning our people who read social media posts to be careful. Here we are speaking from an informed source. We have analyzed the data and we know what it is. For those where the father is not the father, those people are given psychosocial support, and in many cases the mothers are able to remember who else could be actually the biological father, and when that other man is brought for testing, indeed he turns out to be the dad. So I think people have been really lost, misled. And also people should remember that when one man is not the biological father of a child, it doesn't mean there is no other man who is the biological father, because every child is fathered by someone in one or the other. So I think this is where people have been thinking that when a certain man is not, then that child remains in space. No.
But Dr. Bwanga, you would agree that if you found out that one of the children you thought you fathered is actually not yours biologically, it would make you feel a certain way, a different way. We cannot deny that.
True.
And how should people who are in those situations handle? Because
actually, for those, go on.
Okay, let me first finish the question. The father, the alleged biological father, before the tests has put in a lot of money, maybe school fees and stuff.
Sure.
So the disappointment is from a place of loss as well as emotional pain.
Yes.
So how should they handle that situation?
Actually, for your information, for such scenarios where the father has already been putting in a lot, they come when the conflict in the home there is already has escalated. And so they are looking for correct answers in order to see how to handle the issue in the home there. So those ones, of course, as I said, they are given psychosocial support, counseling, and so on. And then, well, I think you are referring to the other case of Mukono, for example. But
there are a number of cases.
But that was just the one which has really trended. And as you can see in that one, the child was brought at 2 years. Then after 10 years, the child was taken away by the same mother who had brought the child in that home. And then the child was hid somewhere. Then the man went to police to report. And then when the tests were done, then the man wasn't the biological father. But again, you can see the mother already knew the other biological father of that child.
Mothers always know.
Yes, so the man had put in a lot, it is true, and definitely, if anyone, it's natural to react like that.
But what is it the best reaction from a medical officer's point of view? And what next? Let me say.
I think that man needs continuous support in terms of psychosocial support, because the facts came out and everything, as you can see, was engineered by the mother, not by anyone. The test actually came in to show the evidence. So it's like what the Baganda said, Chiso Chachi, Chambuzi. The test had no problem. Already there was a fight between him and the mother of the child. And then later, the police requested them to do the test, and so the test came in to provide the facts.
But some of these people accept, some of these women or ladies accept men, accept children who are not theirs in their homes.
Yes.
They become stepmothers to them. Of course,
stepfathers. You said some of the ladies? Okay, go on.
Some of the ladies accept children of men and become their stepmothers.
Yes.
Why is it so hard for men to just react calmly and say, okay, the child is not mine, but
apparently that is also an assumption. Many men actually are keeping children whom they didn't father. Many. Sometimes even the wife they have got has a what? A child she's coming with a child, and they take over the child normally.
True.
And they look after that child very well. Sometimes the child is born when the wife is already in the house, and the men keep quiet, because when they calculate the odds of separating, they find that the disadvantages are more than just keeping quiet. And also that Mukono case is a classic example. That man, the test showed that he's not the father, but you can see still loves the what? The child. So people are just thinking that the men actually will chase out the wife, what. It's not always the case. It's not.
Because this is society, and we have to live with these things.
Yes.
But maybe let's go to the medical and diagnostic as well as forensic.
Now, there are other reasons why which are actually people have not thought about. One of them is for immigration. Now, when a father stays in the US and wants to take with him his or her child who is in Uganda, the embassy will request for a DNA test to confirm that he is actually the biological father of this child, to avoid another bigger crime called child trafficking. Now, that one, people are not even thinking around it. Or if you, so that is also the reason why people do DNA. The other one is DNA profiling. Profiling is done when any man can walk into the lab and have their DNA profiled, and then in the event of death, and then the profile is kept at home with the wife, with the lawyers, on the will, and so on. In the event of death, it is common for some mothers to emerge at that time, and they said these children also were for the late. Now, in that way, these newcomers are easily tested and compared with the existing profile. And then if they are children of the late, yes, they have a right to inherit part of the estates of the late. If they are not, they have another father somewhere, and the mother will have an idea. But imagine you've lost your husband and they have poured on you 3 other children. 2 years, 5 years, whatever, you have to pay fees for. But actually maybe they are not for for your late husband. So actually, the Nalongos, the ladies who are listening, they should encourage the Salongos to what? To do profiling, because science has changed and is transforming society. The other reason for testing is what we call a Y chromosome male relationship testing. Now, the Y chromosome is only found in males. It is what makes us men, and you people, you don't have it, so you are women. Now, the Y chromosome is passed on from the father to the son to the grandson. So, meaning that anyone in these 3 generations has the same Y chromosome. So, in the event that what's his name?
He's called David.
If in case David is semi-brother and we came from the same man, same father, let me say this is our father, and me and David are at this level, 2nd generation. And then for some reason I have children and he has children. But then for some reason I die, and then they bring a child late, a boy, and they say this child was for Dr. Freddie Bwanga. Then that child, if he's a boy, can be compared with David, and we confirm that he's from our male lineage. Okay. If our father is still around, they can still compare with the grandfather of the child, or with my other sons remaining like that. So, in any case, these children who were at the verge of remaining fatherless or familyless, they have a now a chance to belong to a certain family. The other reason we do DNA is in medical applications. For example, when we do HL, when we want to compare people who are going to receive an organ like a kidney and a donor, we do a DNA test to match those two, the donor and recipient. That test is called HLA typing. It is also a DNA test. And this is transplant is going on so much around the world to make people live a better life, live a life. Otherwise, they would die actually. Yes. Then there's forensic DNA testing. This is very, very commonly done in Uganda. For example, when the Kasese incident happened a week or a few weeks back, everyone know that DNA was done to locate their parents. When the Budo SS, Budo what? Budo Junior? Budo Junior. Yes, again the fathers were identified with those bodies through a DNA test. Then in criminal investigations, like when a man rapes a woman, again we get water from that woman and compare with the suspect's sample. We compare the 2 DNA profiles to see whether this is the culprit or not. Okay. So DNA testing has so many wide applications beyond what people are thinking about.
Thank you so much. Our time is fast spent, but it's been a very beautiful discussion. Probably we shall have Dr. Fred back to explain more about this DNA issue and get more into the medical side of it. However, at MBN, it can be done at 385,000 Uganda shillings, which is $100. And of course, that is where I want to wrap up by saying our Lord was very, very wise to say that a man shall leave his home and go make a family. He knew why he put the set of family or the system of family. Family is very, very important. And of course, we are living with these issues here and there. But to survive them or to go through them in the most amicable and calm way, I would think that maybe we seek the guidance of the Lord again and again and again. But from the medical side of it, you have heard it from the horse's mouth, and I believe that you have learned a thing or two. Personally, I've learned very many terms, and I'm still going to go and practice how to say DNA in full, and by next week I'm sure I'll be perfect. From myself and the production crew, it's a good morning.